If he had been told by Vince McMahon that to not use real glass, no, that wouldn't have never happened. And if he'd have disobeyed Vince McMahon's order to not to do something, just like you said, as soon as he walked through that curtain, he'd have been fired. No suspension, right. None of that stuff.
I almost feel like a broken record, but it's something we have to talk about. In fact, Sportskeeda asked us to talk about this discussion. So, over the weekend, Wembley Stadium for AEW, huge event, absolutely huge. One of the largest.
81,000 people, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, just incredible. In the pre-show, Jungle Jack Perry, which I don't think he goes by Jungle anymore, just Jack Perry, had a match against Hook. And during the match, he pointed out that the windshield of a car that he is about to go through was real glass. And he says, "Real glass, cry me a river." Now, that may not seem like much to anybody who was watching that doesn't keep up with the dirt sheets. But what had happened was he was making reference that about a week before he wanted to do a match and he wanted to go through a real windshield of an automobile. And people like Tony Schiavone and people like CM Punk said, no, there's no sense in risking yourself, putting yourself in a bad situation or the company in a bad situation by doing so. So it didn't happen. He got his nose out of joint. Yep. At the end of his match, when he made those comments to the camera, and after he went through a windshield and got cut up, he made his way to the back. In the first match of the show, as he's coming out from the end of the pre-show to the beginning of the show, the first match is CM Punk and Samoa Joe.
Yep.
He passes by Punk. Reports are, and I'm not going to even read one because there's so many freaking reports out there, and every one of them's got a little bit something different in it. But the gist of the story is that Jungle Jack Perry went up and kind of bumped CM Punk or got in his face, and CM Punk, and again, not exactly sure what he did, but it seems like he may have kind of just grabbed him by the neck and kind of backed him off and kind of put him in his place and like, no, what are you doing? That kind of thing. Or asked him, do we have a problem? So that goes down. They're said that they were broken apart. Some people say that maybe it got a little more physical. Some people say no, it didn't. When Punk comes back to the back, followed by security to the back, he already finds out that Jack Perry was asked to leave the building after the incident. Nobody had mentioned anything to Punk. Punk actually made the offer, is it best for me to leave? And they said, yeah, probably would be. So he left. They're now saying that both have been suspended. I have not heard for sure that CM Punk has been suspended because they're saying he hasn't heard anything if he has been. Nothing official. And the next pay-per-view coming up in just 5 days, or how many days from now, Bill? Is that right? 5 days from now?
Well, depending upon when we're taping this, it's on the weekend coming up, yes.
And that match is taking place in Chicago, CM Punk's hometown, and he may not be there for that pay-per-view or the premium live event.
I think with all this going on, people were talking about that Tony Khan said a long time ago that, it's great that there's that whole fog between a shoot and a work, so to say. That could be this. I don't think it is. But I do not think if CM Punk is going to be sidelined or suspended, I don't think it's going to go on in Chicago because the fans there, no matter what CM Punk does, are loyal to him. And I think the whole show, if he's not there, they're going to be blasting every match with chants of CM Punk, CM Punk. I'll be honest with you. They had 81,000 people at that show. They put on a stellar show. MJF and Adam Cole was probably the match of the year at this point. This part of what happened there is taking the thunder away from what a quality professional wrestling show this was. So I take the CM Punk and the Jack Perry thing and I put it over here. and I want to say congratulations. You broke the attendance records. You had a fantastic show. Congratulations to, like what MJF said, all the misfits that shouldn't have been there, but they were, that made this show spectacular. And it was.
But is it not unfortunate that the news again from the pay-per-view wasn't the pay-per-view, but the drama behind the scenes?
I just said that.
Yeah. That to me, Teddy, let's just say we're in WWE and that took place. I'm guessing Vince, first of all, the second that Jack Perry made his way through the curtains, would have said, "You're fired." I don't know where you throw blame on CM Punk. I hate this because I know people will think I'm a big CM Punk supporter, and that's not the case. I'm just looking at what I hear. And if CM Punk is just trying to help and try to calm things down and keep things within perspective and teach some of the young guys, you don't need to do this, and this doesn't need to be done, and you don't need to be a smartass, especially right now at this point of a pay-per-view. I just can't find fault for CM Punk. It sounds to me like there's a lot of just young talent that can't grow up.
Well, here's the thing, man. And like I said, I can't really speak on AEW because I don't watch it, okay? But here's what I can say about this. You know what I mean? Now, Jack Perry, I don't know the young man, never met him a day in my life. Okay, the only thing I can say about this, if he was in the WWE, because I think, in my opinion, this is my opinion, I think the leadership there is a lot better. If he had been told by Vince McMahon that to not use real glass, that wouldn't have never happened. And if he'd have disobeyed Vince McMahon's order not to do something, just like you said, as soon as he walked through that curtain, he'd have been fired. No suspension, none of that stuff. But I think that if he was in the WWE, the leadership there would have certainly put him in his place, and he wouldn't have never made a mistake like that. If somebody tell you don't do something, then you don't do it. So I think that just come from the leadership in AEW.
How do you fix the problem? Does the problem need to be fixed at the very top? Is Tony Khan the really? I mean, you're running the company. It happened twice on pay-per-view. Something's got to fall on Tony's shoulders. He's got to almost make an example out of someone.
So wait a minute. Let's say you were working for Walmart, okay? And the boss told you can't do something and you break the rules. You either get a write-up or you're out on your butt out the door and you're fired. So it's just like any other company. If you break the rules and you intimidate people, it's just going to be really bad for you.
Well, it would be a little different, too, in our business, because if you're told not to go through a windshield that has real glass, you're taking chances of hurting yourself. You can do real damage to your own self. So that's what I think the WWE is looking out for. Not only what's going to cause problems for the fans, but you're going to cause problems for yourself. You become a liability. Now, if something happened to you, they got to send you to the hospital. They got to pay all your hospital bills for some nonsense that you were told not to do. So it just doesn't make any sense to me to just put your own self in danger, But these young kids, like I said, a lot of them, they're kind of hard-headed. So I guess it is what it is.
They should have cut it off at the pass because they knew there was trouble brewing. And I think even though they wanted to continue with the angle and the storyline and everything and what's going on in AEW, I would have left one of them home.
I just think there's a lot of people that need to grow up. I mean, they just need to work. This is a profession. Let me ask you this. Now, is this pay-per-view that's coming up in Chicago, is that match with CM Punk, is he scheduled to wrestle Jack Perry? No, neither one. By the way, I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to say this. Neither one is scheduled on that pay-per-view card as of now. Mm-hmm. If I go back to the very beginning of all the troubles we had with CM Punk and the Young Bucks and all that, and we kept saying you need to do something with this. When he came back to Collision, I thought he had a group of guys on that program that he wanted to work with and that he wanted as his roster. Mm-hmm. So, having said that, part of me wonders, is this somebody trying to perform a little magic that we believe doesn't happen anymore, but it can? Do you understand what I'm saying?
No.
I'm wondering if that maybe this is a work and they're doing it so well because it was based on something that happened a year ago, and maybe that will build a feud between these two.
Yeah, but if they have a match, it's going to be obvious that that the whole thing is a work. It's going to be obvious unless it's a shoot fight. It's too obvious. They can't put them in the ring against each other after this.
Well, I mean, so would you never put CM Punk and the Young Bucks in the same ring together after all that drama?
No, I think the Young Bucks. Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I think the Young Bucks situation is different than the CM Punk and Jack Perry situation.
Teddy, what'd you say a minute ago?
Vince would do it.
He'd put them together in the ring?
Exactly.
Yep.
Right. Plus, not only does that draw money, but it draws ratings too. That does a lot of stuff for TV. But also, if Vince did do that, I guarantee you he would have a conversation with both of them, before they even went out there. And he would explain, what's good and what's not bad. But I mean, Vince would capitalize on it. That's money right there.
Yeah.
Like I said, we don't know whether they're working it or not, but if they are, I think they're doing a poor job of it.
Well, the thing is, the fans, if they have a match between Jack Perry and CM Punk, the fans of AEW are similar to the fans that loved passionately ECW, and they will figure out that it's bull SH immediately, and that could set things backwards.
Well, here's what they can do. Now, since CM Punk was really not the aggressor, then they could drop the suspension on CM Punk and have him show up at the pay-per-view and have him have a match. Now, during that CM Punk match, then out of the blue, here comes Jack Perry, which has been suspended, but he don't give a shit. He can buy a ticket, okay, which makes it legal. He can buy a ticket and come into the arena. So maybe here comes Jack Perry right at the end. If Punk is trying to, maybe when it's time, Punk goes for his finish, Jack hits that ring and there's a big all-out brawl right there, brother. Now you got a big pull apart, even involve the police. So, we just have to wait and see what happens. But I think if they're working this, it's just horrible.
It's amazing that every time a wrestler, quote unquote, buys a ticket, you notice it's always in the front row. It just happens to be one seat in the front row.
Yeah, they're not, like I said, if it's a work, it's a lot, it's a more better way you could have worked this and made it more believable than what they're doing, because that's why I say I don't think it's a work, because it's just so shabby.
You know what? I met Jack Perry. He's a nice kid, but again, the people around his age in the business that make as much money as he makes, there's a whole different attitude about who I am at that point.
But it doesn't mean it's the right attitude, that's for sure, because that's what those veterans are there for, to kind of, look, these guys, they're on the road a lot. And the older guys have always been, I would imagine, in wrestling, the guys that would kind of keep the young bucks kind of in line and make sure they grew up the right way within the business. And even in some of the personal cases, I've heard of guys who are older that basically mentored the younger guys as a father figure in some cases, because they didn't have anybody. They were already young, they're on the road, and they had to learn from somebody. So these young guys need to pay attention when these older guys who have been in the business all this time are offering you some help, some insight as to how to make it work in this business. I would just open my ears and listen. That's what you should do. Don't be a smartass and act like you know everything, because at that point, I've always been told if you know everything, you don't need to be in the business anymore. You should always be learning something new, always.
At the press conference, MJF called them a bunch of effing misfits and all that, and they should not even have been this, but they all got together as a team and made this whole thing happen. So it's terrible that this little piece, look at this. One of the most amazing things was Sting in 63, 64 years old, performing like he's in his 20s. It was a great night. I refuse to let this whole CM Punk, Jack Perry thing spoil what was an excellent professional wrestling show with 81,000 fans. So enthusiastic. It was wonderful.